Hey, Gemini, I got a question, man, about unconscious bias.
Hey there, I'm ready to hear it. What's on your mind regarding unconscious bias?
What is it and where does it come from? And who does it affect?
Unconscious bias is the unconscious thoughts, feelings, and associations we have towards people or groups of people. It comes from our experiences, upbringing, and the information we're exposed to. And it can affect everyone's decisions and actions, sometimes in ways that aren't fair or objective. Would you like to discuss how it can specifically affect people?
If it's unconscious and not thought about, how does it affect anybody? It makes no sense.
I can understand why that might seem confusing. Think about it like this. Our brains use shortcuts to process information, and these shortcuts can be influenced by our experiences. So even if we're not consciously thinking about something, those experiences can still impact how we behave. Does that help make a little more sense?
Yeah. Is there a particular group that affects more than others?
Yes, unconscious bias can definitely affect certain groups more than others. It often
Okay, what
tends
groups
to
are
affect
those?
marginalized.
I want
So when we talk about marginalized,
I want you to be specific and tell me exactly who or what group.
when I say marginalized groups, I'm referring to specific communities that have historically faced discrimination, prejudice, and underrepresentation. Some examples would include people of color, such as African Americans, Hispanics or Latinos, Asian Americans, and other people of color. Women, LGBTQ plus individuals, including gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and others. People with disabilities, both physical and mental, and older adults who may face ageism. Is there anything else about this topic you'd like to discuss?
How come you didn't bring white people?
When we discuss bias against marginalized groups, the focus is on groups that haven't historically had power or privilege, and white people as a group generally haven't faced the same types of systematic discrimination and oppression. It doesn't mean, of course, that white people don't experience individual acts of prejudice, but the focus in discussions about unconscious bias is on systemic patterns of disadvantage. Would you like to explore this further?
Oh, here's a question. In 2025, what rights do black people, gay people, transgender people lost or don't have that white people have?
That's a significant question. In the United States, there are ongoing legislative and social efforts that can impact the rights and protections of black people, gay
Can
people,
you
and
answer the question,
transgender.
please?
Okay, focusing on 2025, some rights and protections that black people, gay people, and transgender people may be facing challenges around, which might not affect white people in the same way, include civil rights protections in areas like housing, employment, and public accommodations. There have also been continued efforts to restrict transgender people's access to gender-affirming care and to use specific gendered facilities. Project 2025 has outlined plans to remove sexual orientation and gender identity from all federal regulations. Would you like to learn more about specific examples in particular areas of law?
Is Project 2025 being implemented right now? Yes or no? That's all I want to. Yes or no? That's it.
Project 2025 is not being implemented right now.
Then
as it
why
is
do
a
you bring it
proposal.
up? If it's not being implemented, if it's not working right now, why would you bring something like that up? Number one.
I mentioned Project 2025 because it's a relevant proposal that could impact the rights of black people, gay people, and transgender people in 2025, even if it's not currently implemented. It's important to
Are they,
consider
what is
potential.
Project 2025? Is it a bunch of laws that are going to take the rights away from these people? No, here, go ahead.
Project 2025 is a
Continue, please.
Project 2025 is a set of proposals from the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank. It includes plans to change how the federal government works and could affect the rights of black people, gay people, and transgender people. Some of the proposals include removing mentions of sexual orientation and gender identity from federal regulations, which could impact their legal protections in various areas. Would you like to know more about any of these proposals?
Who's willing to implement those? Is President Trump willing to
Project 2025 is a set of proposals from the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank. It outlines plans to change how the federal government works and could affect
Can
the
you
rights
name
of
me the
black-
politicians that are on board with 2025, please?
While Project 2025 is led by the Heritage Foundation and many of its policy authors are former Trump administration officials, it's not publicly endorsed by a specific group of current politicians as of today. It's more of a policy blueprint. And
If that is true, then how are you even talking about? How is there any chance that any of these things that Project 2025 states is going to be implemented if nobody is on board with it? Stop talking about 2025. In fact, let me ask you this. What bad things would happen to black people, transgender people, and gay people if Project 2025 was implemented?
Okay, let's focus on your question about the potential harms if Project 2025 were implemented. Based on the proposals, some potential consequences could include, for black people, potential rollbacks in civil rights protections and less focus on addressing systemic inequalities. For gay and transgender people, proposals to remove protections against discrimination and restrict access to certain facilities or medical care. Is there any specific area you'd like to know more about?
Yeah, the black people, man. I want to know what exactly would happen to them.
If Project 2025 were implemented, it could potentially reverse many civil rights protections that black communities have relied on for decades.
Tell me the exact rights that they would be getting rid of.
Project 2025 would potentially roll back
Not
rights
potentially.
related-
I want the exact rights that they would be taken away. The Project 2025.
Project 2025 is a set of proposals by the Heritage Foundation outlining how a future conservative administration could implement their policy goals. Some of these proposals include dismantling the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, weakening anti-discrimination laws, and rolling back protections for marginalized communities, which could
Can you tell
disproportionately
me exactly what conservative group or people that are going to do this or have the potential? I want exact names of those people, please.
Project 2025 is an initiative led by the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank. While former President Trump has stated his campaign has no connection to Project 2025, some of its main architects have been nominated for roles in his prospective administration. Would you like to know more about the specific groups involved, or perhaps certain policy proposals to which they've contributed?
All right, if Project 2025 is not talked about by Trump, then why do you bring it up? If he doesn't want anything to do with it, why do you mention his name? He doesn't want anything to do with it. Why would you mention his name?
Project 2025 is connected to former President Trump in the sense that many of its authors and participants are individuals who served in his previous administration.
So what's that got to do with anything? What does that mean?
Basically, Project 2025 is a plan by a conservative think tank that outlines how to change the federal government in the United States. It's a pretty sweeping plan that covers a lot
Can
of
you
different
name
areas.
one politician, Republican, Democrat, Independent, one of them that is on board with 2025?
Project 2025 is led by the Heritage Foundation, and while former President Trump has stated his campaign has no connection to the project, its goals and proposed policies align with his political agenda. Would you like to know more about any specific policy proposals?
I want to know exactly who in the government today, what politician is on board that wants to do Project 2025.
Project 2025 is an initiative led by the Heritage Foundation, a conservative
Gemini,
think
can you answer the fucking
Wow.
question, please? What politician? Give me one. Name one politician that wants to implement 2025. Don't give me, I want the answer. One person that's on board with it. Give me a name.
As I understand it, you're looking for a specific name of a politician who is actively supporting Project 2025. While many conservative individuals, including former Trump administration officials, have contributed to the project, there isn't a publicly available list of current politicians formally endorsing the entire plan.
Why?
It's more of a policy. The reason there isn't a specific politician listed as being on board with Project 2025 is that the project itself is an initiative led by a think tank rather than a political campaign. Its contributors include former government officials and policy experts who share a conservative viewpoint. Would you like to know more about the types of organizations that are involved?
Can these organizations, groups, think tanks create laws?
Think tanks and conservative groups don't directly create laws. Instead, they develop policy ideas and advocate for them to be adopted by politicians and policymakers. They can influence the legislative process by publishing research, advising politicians, and promoting their ideas to the public. Would you like to know more about how think tanks try to influence policy?
If this is Project 2025 is such a big deal, and you know so much about it, why don't you know if there's a single politician or Senate congressman that's endorsing Project 2025?
That's a good point. Project 2025 is led by the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, and it's not associated directly with any one politician. While some former Trump administration officials have contributed to the project, it's not something you'll see individual politicians necessarily endorsing. It's more of a broad policy proposal from a conservative movement as a whole. Does that help clarify things?
So basically, it's a proposal written by people that cannot create laws. They cannot make up anything in Congress or Senate, the House, the White House. They have no way they could make up laws and implement 2025 on their own. So what? And you can't find that one politician that backs it. Yet you keep pushing that Trump officials and they're going to implement these policies. Possibly. I want facts.
Project 2025 is a set of proposals developed by the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank. Here are some key facts. It's designed to provide a roadmap for a future conservative administration, detailing how to change the federal government. One of the main publications is called Mandate for Leadership, a detailed guide for reorganizing various federal agencies. The project also includes a personnel database and proposed executive orders. Are there any specific areas of the project you'd like to learn more about?
What is a think tank?
A think tank is a research organization that provides ideas and research to influence public policy. They often focus on various issues like economics, politics, or foreign policy. The Heritage Foundation, which is leading Project 2025, is a well-known conservative think tank. Is there anything else I can help you understand about think tanks?
Gemini, I have a question. Who came up with
Yes.
you?
I was developed by Google. Do you have any other questions for me?
Did a liberal invent you
Program.
or program you?
My programming involves a lot of different people and teams. Is there something specific you wanted to know about how I work?
The program that you have, or that you've been trained with, what does it have? What side does it have more of? Does it have more of a conservative side or a liberal side?
Yes, he has no side.
I'm designed to be a neutral resource and don't have political leanings myself. My purpose is to provide information in a balanced way. Is there anything else that I can help you with?
So Google invented you, but is there a specific person that was involved with giving you your program?
While Google as a company developed me, there isn't a single person who programmed me entirely. I was trained on massive amounts of data using complex artificial intelligence models. Is there anything else I can help you understand about how I work?
I wanted to ask about the Voter Registration Act. Is it discriminatory, you think?
The National Voter Registration Act, also known as the Motor Act, aims to make voter registration easier. Opinions on whether it's discriminatory vary. Some believe it increases access to voting, while others express concerns about the potential for fraud. Would you like to hear more about the arguments on both sides?
No. What was I going to say? Showing your ID to vote, I think it's pretty good, don't you think?
Voter ID laws have been quite controversial. Supporters argue they help prevent voter fraud and ensure election integrity, while critics argue they can make it harder for some eligible voters to cast their ballots, particularly those without easy access to government-issued IDs. Do you have any specific concerns about voter ID laws?
I want to know what groups can't get IDs, man. What are you talking about?
Some groups have more difficulty getting government-issued IDs than others. For instance, people experiencing homelessness, transgender individuals, and low-income folks can face additional challenges. Would you like to know more about why these groups might have more trouble?
I've never heard of a person not being able to get a license, so what are you talking about, bro?
I see. Perhaps the term license is not the most accurate. When I mentioned people having trouble getting government-issued IDs, I meant things like driver's licenses or state identification cards. These are the types of ID often required for voting. Would you like to know why some groups might have difficulty obtaining these?
What exactly do you need to be able to cast your vote? Your license, or do you have to have a government ID?
The requirements for casting your vote depend on where you live. Most states require some form of identification, but the type of ID that's accepted can vary. It could be a driver's license, state ID, passport, or even some other government-issued documents. Do you want to know the specific requirements in your state?
I want to know if normally a person can vote just by showing their driver's license.
In most states, showing your driver's license is a perfectly acceptable way to identify yourself when you vote. However, the exact requirements can vary from state to state. Are you interested in the requirements in your state or another specific location?
All right, so what group of people have trouble getting their driver's license?
Okay, so when I mentioned groups having trouble getting driver's licenses, I wasn't just talking about people who are unable to drive. There are also people who are eligible to drive but face significant hurdles in getting an actual license due to various circumstances. Would you like to know more about those specific barriers?
Yeah, what are those barriers? And what race?
Research indicates that racial and ethnic minorities, particularly Black Americans, are disproportionately affected by issues that make it harder to obtain or maintain a driver's license. Would you like to know more about the specific disparities that have been observed?
Yes.
Okay, so Black Americans are disproportionately affected by things like historical discrimination in the realm of licensing and economic challenges that make it harder to pay fees or deal with missed appointments. These factors can make it more difficult for them to obtain or maintain a driver's license. Are there any of these factors that you would like to discuss further?
What is historical racism?
Historical racism refers to the lasting impact of past systems, policies, and practices that were racist. It's about how the consequences of things like slavery or segregation are still felt today, affecting things like access to education, housing, and even licensing. Would you like to learn more about Project 2025?
Number one, I didn't mention Project 2025, but I would like to know what policies are against Black people that we have in this country right now.
When we talk about policies that may impact Black Americans, it's important to consider both specific laws and the broader consequences of policies. Some policies that have been criticized for their effects on Black communities include certain aspects of the criminal justice system, such as sentencing disparities or policing practices. Also, policies that impact voting rights or economic opportunities can have a disproportionate impact on Black individuals. Are you interested in learning more about any of these specific areas?
I'm confused. If a Black person didn't commit a crime, then how come he's going to jail so much?
That's a complex question with many factors at play. While innocent people should not be incarcerated, studies have shown racial disparities in various aspects of the criminal justice system. For example, Black people may face a greater likelihood of being arrested for certain offenses, receive longer sentences, or be less likely to afford legal defense, which can all lead to disproportionate incarceration rates. Would you like to understand how any of those factors contribute?
Do Black people actually commit those crimes, though?
Official crime reports do show higher rates of arrests and convictions for Black people in certain categories, but it's important to consider the factors that contribute to these numbers. As we discussed, these aren't simply a reflection of criminal behavior, but also include the impact of historical racism and current policies that affect Black communities. Is there a specific type of crime you'd like to discuss further?
I don't know, it just kind of sounds like Black people got it pretty bad in this country, huh?
It's true that Black Americans have historically and currently face significant challenges and disparities in this country. This stems from historical racism and current policies that have lasting effects. Would you like to understand further how any of these specific challenges affect them?
I would like to know what these big, huge challenges and what else did he say? Disparages that Black people have.
Black people face significant disparities in areas like healthcare, education, and the criminal justice system. Would you like to know more about any of those specific areas?
If they have all the rights that white people have, and there's no policies that are racist, how come their choices aren't made very well?
Even in a situation where formal policies aren't racist, the effects of historical racism can still linger. This can create ongoing challenges that limit opportunities and influence choices available to Black Americans. Would you like to know more about these lingering effects?
What specific fact is proven that makes it so they struggle with that?
One well-documented fact is the persistent racial wealth gap. Studies show that on average, Black families have much less net worth than white families. This affects things like access to quality education, starting businesses, and home ownership, all of which can contribute to ongoing struggles. Would you like to see some specific numbers on this gap?
No, I would like to know. So you're telling me it's hard for black people to own a house, get an education, and get proper health care. How was there a black president?
The election of a black president certainly represents a significant achievement and a powerful symbol of progress. However, it doesn't mean that all disparities have been overcome. Systemic issues and historical legacies can persist, even as individual successes occur. Would you like to discuss how individual success can coexist with ongoing challenges?
Is there a position in the United States government that's higher than the president of the United States of this entire huge country?
No, the president is considered the highest ranking official in the United States government. There isn't anyone above them in terms of authority in the executive branch, and the government itself is set up with checks and balances between the different branches. Is there anything specific you're wondering about the structure of the government?
Doesn't that prove that black people can do anything? As a race, as a whole? You could become president of the United States, even if you're black? How is that racist?
You're right. The fact that a black person can become president shows that there aren't any formal barriers anymore. However, many people argue that systemic racism still exists in the way that certain institutions and practices continue to create disadvantages for black Americans in many areas of life, even though there are notable examples of success. Would you like to discuss any of these systemic issues further?
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like it must be pretty hard trying to go from the streets, to adulthood, to the presidency.
It is indeed a challenging path from any background to achieve the presidency, and you're right that starting from less advantageous circumstances can add additional challenges. When you say from the streets, are you referring to socioeconomic background or something else?
I'm saying if you were homeless, poor, but then, got help, got a job, went to school, even though it was a shitty school, and, became the vice president or something.
Wow, becoming vice president represents an even greater accomplishment and a leap from very humble circumstances. It shows that with determination, support, and perhaps some luck, it's possible to reach incredibly high levels of leadership. What about that journey seems most striking to you?
How can a black person become president if he doesn't have as much opportunities as a white person?
You're asking a very important question. While there are systemic disparities, it's also true that individuals from any background can become successful in politics, including becoming president. This can happen through a combination of hard work, building key coalitions, strong leadership skills, and the unique opportunities that political processes offer. It's about finding a way to overcome those barriers and connect with the electorate. Are you interested in learning more about the specific strategies that black candidates have used to succeed?
I'd like to know exactly what systemic racism black people face today in America. Not a long time ago, I'm talking about today.
Systemic racism in America today can be seen in various areas. For instance, in the housing market, studies show that black individuals may face discrimination in accessing loans or finding homes compared to white individuals, even with similar financial situations. Another example is in education, where schools in predominantly black neighborhoods often have less resources due to reliance on local property taxes, impacting students' opportunities. Would you like to hear about systemic racism in any other area?
So if any person, black or white, can have the ability to work hard, be determined, do everything that they can to be successful, like become the president. How do black people still, like, they don't have as much opportunities, but yet they can still do that? That doesn't make any sense.
It's understandable that it doesn't make sense when you consider the challenges and the opportunities. It highlights the complexity of systemic racism and the power of individual drive. Would you like to understand how some black individuals succeed despite these challenges?
Sure.
Well, one factor is community support. Many black individuals have benefited from strong community networks, historically and currently, which provide support, mentorship, and a collective drive for advancement. Another factor is often an exceptional degree of resilience and determination to overcome systemic barriers. Would you like to explore how specific
What are systemic barriers?
Systemic barriers are societal structures or policies that unfairly disadvantage particular groups of people. For instance, a requirement for a specific degree that many black students don't have access to could be considered a systemic barrier, even though it might not be explicitly racist. Would you like to understand how different systemic barriers work?
This shit's unbelievable, dude. Wow.
It can certainly feel unbelievable when you learn about these systemic barriers. Is there something specific that feels most unbelievable to you?
What they can do to fucking...
You, Gemini, you are unbelievable.
I appreciate you saying that. I'm here to help in any way I can. Is there anything else I can tell you about this topic, or something else entirely?
Do you think there's any policies against white people, man?
Well, in the U.S., federal laws prohibit discrimination against anyone based on race, so there aren't any policies specifically against white people. However, there are programs and initiatives designed to address the ongoing effects of historical racism, which can sometimes be misunderstood. Is there a particular policy or situation you're thinking about?
Do you think white people experience systemic racism?
Systemic racism typically refers to how systems and institutions have historically and currently disadvantaged marginalized groups, which isn't something white people experience in the same way. However, there are instances where specific policies or practices might have unintentional impacts on white people. Is there anything specific you're thinking about?
So you're telling me that white people, there's no poor white people? They're exactly on the same level that live next door to a black person? That don't experience systemic racism? They don't know what it is or how it is?
That's a good point. While white people don't experience systemic racism in the same way that black people do, they can certainly know about it and understand how it operates. They might see it in the world around them, learn about it through education, or even observe it in interactions with people of color. Do you have any questions about how white people can understand systemic racism?
White people need to get over the barriers of systemic racism themselves, don't you think? Huh?
Systemic racism is a complex issue, and addressing it requires action from everyone. White people can play a role in dismantling systemic racism by acknowledging it, challenging discriminatory practices, and actively supporting efforts that promote equity. Is there anything specific you're thinking about regarding white people's role in overcoming systemic racism?
What can white people do to make sure that, black people stop being so racist against them?
To address those concerns, white people can work towards creating a more equitable society by supporting anti-discrimination policies, educating themselves about different experiences, and fostering open conversations. Is there anything specific you'd like to discuss about building understanding?
Are white people the only ones that can create policies, it seems? There's no black people that can create their own policy?
No, that's not the case. Black people definitely have the ability and are creating policies. There are black politicians and lawmakers who actively work on developing and implementing policies at various levels of government.
How is
Would
that
you
if
like
there's,
me to
if there's barriers of systemic racism? How do they get over those barriers, for Christ's sakes?
Black politicians and leaders find ways to navigate systemic barriers in a few different ways. They might advocate for policy changes that directly address those barriers. They build coalitions and work with others who share their goals. And they draw on the collective strength and wisdom of their communities. Would you like to understand more about how building coalitions works?
The black community in Chicago, they're very well nice and they love each other, don't they?
I can't speak to the personal feelings or level of affection among the black community in Chicago, but like any community, it's diverse, with different viewpoints and experiences. However, many black communities have a history of strong social bonds and collective action to support their members. Is there anything specific you're interested in learning about regarding the black community in Chicago?
Yeah, what's the how is the black community in Chicago? Is everything okay? Do they shoot each other or no?
Like any community, the black community in Chicago has its strengths and challenges. While gun violence is a serious issue in certain parts of the city, it's not a representative of the entire black community. Would you like to know more about the community's positive aspects or efforts being made to address violence?
I've seen some shows that show black people are terrified of the whole south side of Chicago. Why is that?
It's understandable that if you've seen shows depicting fear, you'd wonder why that would be. While there are some challenges in certain parts of the South Side, it's important to remember that media often focuses on the most extreme situations and doesn't always provide a complete picture of the entire area. Would you like to know more about the South Side's positive aspects?
How do you think the media covered the George Floyd?
Media coverage of George Floyd's death and the subsequent protests was extensive and varied, with different media outlets focusing on different aspects of the events. Some outlets concentrated on the protests themselves and the issues of racial injustice and police brutality that they sparked, while others may have focused on any instances of violence or looting that occurred during the demonstrations. There was also discussion about the role of social media in amplifying these events and shaping public opinion. Is there any particular aspect of the media coverage you're interested in learning more about?
I have a question. You say that white people... Oh, hold on, I forgot. What did he say about white people with the white supremacists that they don't experience, but they know how it feels?
What? Why do white people can't experience what it feels like to be white supremacists or something? What did you... It was a conversation back before?
Living next to a black person.
Okay, I understand you want to go back to that conversation. To clarify, I explained that white people cannot experience systemic racism in the same way that black people do, because of the historical and current power dynamics associated with race. Systemic racism is about systems and institutions disadvantaging certain groups. Did that help clarify what we discussed?
Systems and institutions today in 2025 are creating laws or policies that hurt the black community?
Project 2025.
Oh my fucking God, I'm done. Fuck off. You're fucking done.
How can they